Hello and welcome back to the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and this episode is going to be about our one lifetime in this body and the preciousness of it, and give you a perspective that will hopefully ignite the fire in your heart to make this life the most awesome that you can make it. Now, it's early in the morning. It's at 7:24 for me at the time of this recording, a day late. Well, really, I was supposed to release last night at 10, so almost 12 hours late. Well, actually about 8 hours or something. But the point is, this is the season 1 finale. We've covered a lot in season 1, and I'm very excited for season 2, and I'm honored to have a platform and to bring on people to share their stories and their hope and their life philosophy and all of that good stuff. But I really want to highlight that we have this one life in this body. And for some of us, it's going to be a very short time, and others it may be a bit longer. You might live to your 80 or 100. But regardless of the day and time that you leave this earth, I want to implore you to make the most of it. And let's bring it to the present moment. Let's bring it to right now as you're listening to my voice. Right now is your life. Anything and everything that has happened in the past, anything that has happened in the past, and everything that will happen in the future is really just happening right now. Eternity is in this present moment. Are you going to be here for it? Forget about tomorrow. Forget about learn from yesterday, but forget about tomorrow. Those don't exist anymore. They're gone. What matters is what's going on right now. Are you holding hope in your heart? Are you experiencing gratitude? Are you experiencing love for yourself, for life, and for others? Are you working towards improving? Are you working towards your mission, your life goal? The big one, the big goal. I've met a lot of elderly and older people who wish that instead of just following the corporate pipeline or the job 9-to-5 pipeline, that they wished they would have stuck to acting or music or something that really they were just so passionate about, but they got in their own mind, and maybe other people got in their own mind and told them that it wasn't possible to be realistic. And I want to call those people out, and I want to call those thoughts out. Define what is real. What is realistic? The bench that I'm sitting on right now, is this a real bench? Is the ground I walk on real? Am I even real? Are you even real? And so what I'm getting at is, I call this a bench, and to me, from my perspective, it looks like a bench. I can knock on it, I'm sitting on it, and I call it a bench, so it's a bench. But what is it really? And what it is a bunch of atoms organized in such a way that it formed wood. And the human mind learned that, when we make these things in a certain way, this is what we call a bench. Now, if we look at it from a purely pure perspective, it's not a bench. It's not even wood. It's not even, metal holding it together. It's just what I decided to call what we call wood. We called it wood. We called it a bench, so we called it a bench. It's an idea. It's a concept that we came up with. And yeah, I'm not saying that I'm not actually sitting here in this present moment right now, but I'm saying real is such a broad spectrum on what is actually real and what's just made up entirely in the human mind. A bee doesn't look at this and go, oh, that's a bench. A bee looks at it, maybe, I don't know what a bee thinks. I'm not a bee. But, when a cat lays on your bed, it's not like, oh, I'm going on the bed. It just thinks, I don't know what a cat thinks, but you know what I mean? Like, just because humans define something as real or define it with a label does not mean that label is actually based in actual reality. A lot of things are just based in the human mind. And if we want to get into it, reality comes from our consciousness. Consciousness is reality. My awareness generates the outside, the quote-unquote outside, as within, so without. It's all one. So what is real? Real is I don't even think real is real. You know what I mean? If we want to get a bit philosophical about it, like, is real even real? Are these thoughts that I'm having about what I'm experiencing real? And I don't want to get off into a tangent on, but I'm just saying, the point is, if you think you can do it, you're right. If you think you can't do it, you're right. But you're never going to find out what will result of going after your dreams or your goals, whatever you want to call them, if you don't go after them. And if your goals will lead you to leading a different and a better life, and especially if you do not like the life you're currently living, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by making that leap of faith, by making the decision in your life to, I'm not saying go quit your job or this or that, but what I'm saying is you can, in this moment, define your goal and come up with a plan on how to get there. If you want to start a podcast, okay, first you need a name. Then you need to probably secure the social media handles and, ensure that no one else has that name. There's steps that you can take right now in this moment. And do your best. And whatever you do it your absolute best. Do or do not. There is no try, because if you're trying to achieve your goal, then that means that you don't fully believe in your ability to accomplish it. But if you say, and in your mind, you're doing the goal, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it and give it my best shot. You're doing it. If you don't want to, just don't do it. If you don't think, you don't have to do it. You don't have to go after your goals or your dreams. You can just live a mediocre life. And I'm not shitting on people who live the 9-to-5 or the corporate life. These are areas of life where are needed in society, and perhaps they do really enjoy their work and their career at the 9-to-5 or in corporate or in healthcare or whatever field they're in. This is more directed to the visionaries of the world and the people who have big goals. Let's look at a few examples. Look at Tate McRae. Look at Addison Rae. Look at even Somber. These are, Gen Z pop stars who in recent years have really come to the main stage and the forefront of pop culture. They didn't just do that because they didn't believe in themselves and that they were doubting and they just half-assed their goals. No, they defined what they wanted. And this is a presumption, but because I don't know them, I haven't spoken with them whatsoever, Maybe I would love to at some point down the line. Shout out. But what I'm saying is they had a goal, they defined it for themselves, they had the vision, and they took what was they took what was required and did it, and then they did it again and again and again until it achieved the result that they wanted. And of course, people fail. Not every choice and every step that you take is going to be big and beautiful and massive. But I'd rather have a shitty step than to never move whatsoever. I'd rather have a shitty step than to not move at all. You get what I'm getting at? It is possible for you if you believe it's possible for you. And I'm not saying you're going to be Britney Spears. I'm not saying you're going to be Michael Jackson. I'm not saying you aren't either. But what I'm saying is if you don't do your best, and if you don't at least do the things, I was almost going to say try, but do your best and do whatever it takes to get to, or at least as close as you can possibly get to your dream, vision, your goal, whatever. You're just never going to find out, and it will never be possible. And the dogmatic way of thinking, go to school, go to college or university, get a job, work, make money, pay off debt, save, have a family, have kids, pay off debt, put them through school, and the cycle continues. And I want to be clear. I believe, and I am for, and I endorse higher education or getting into the trades. I endorse it. But I acknowledge at the same time that path is not for everyone. Some people do not want to do that, and that's totally okay. Some people, they don't want to, or they don't need to, and that's okay. I don't believe education is necessarily the defining factor in someone's life that will determine if they are a success or not, because you can have an education and a degree or a master's or a doctorate and still be a failure, at least in your own eyes, or maybe, a degree does not signify success. Success is signified by the person. There are many examples who seem to be the exception, not the rule, which is why I endorse education, who didn't have any education, or they had very minimal education, or they dropped out, and then later on they came to be very successful and wealthy and affluent. But I also want to, say, if someone drops out of Harvard or Yale or one of these major world-renowned universities, they're already really fucking smart. It's not like they dropped out of their local community college. They got into Harvard, and Harvard has some standards that you got to meet and exceed in order to even be looked at. So when people say, Elon Musk dropped out of college and he's now the world's richest man, I believe he went to Harvard. He went to one of the big top schools in the States, but for I'm not going to look into it at this point. But yeah, I think I would become pretty successful too if I dropped out of Harvard, because my business was already making me enough money. And that's really why people go to school, is one, to get educated, social connection, networking, but also so that you can make more money. And if you're already making, millions of dollars, there's really no point in going. And I'm saying self-made. I'm not talking about people who are born into wealthy families. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think, if you're already making all of this money, education might be a waste of time. Education is extremely important to pull people out of poverty, to prevent poverty from happening, yes. But we gotta understand that that's not the rule, necessarily. That's just statistically what is likely to happen, is people end up in poverty due to a lack of education. And statistically, when people are highly educated, there's less of a chance for them to stay in poverty and for their kids to end up in poverty. And even statistically, a higher chance of, if they go to higher education or not, will stay out of poverty and still become very wealthy or middle class and get out of the poverty pipeline. So how do you achieve your goal? First, you got to know what you want. What do you desire? What do you want to achieve? What is the vision? I'm a very mentally visual person. So I can I can see the vision of what I'm after, or what I'm going after. How I get to that vision is semi up to me. That's why people say write it down. Write it down. And you got to know what it is that you're going after. Define what it is that you want. Oh, I want to be rich. That's not defining what you want. Oh, I want to be famous. That's not necessarily defining what you want to achieve. I mean, it's general. I'm just saying, get more specific and less general on the end goal. And once you have defined your end goal, and for me, I do want to become rich and famous. But no, I want to be financially secure and responsible. And I want to, when I have kids, be able to provide a life that is fun. A life where my kids don't have to worry about bills. And sometimes it is, honestly, sometimes it is a bit general. I want my kid, that is defining it. But the point is to define what it is. Put it into words, put it onto paper. And then ask yourself, how do I get to that goal? How do I achieve this? Now, big things are an accumulation of small things put together. Beyonce did not become Beyonce overnight. Madonna did not become Madonna overnight. Marilyn Monroe did not become Marilyn Monroe overnight. You see, they too were a dreamer at one point. They too had a goal. They had a vision. They had a life that they wanted to achieve. And it was the work, not what they did in the spotlight, but the work they did behind the scenes that got them there. Consistency, discipline, hope, faith got them to where they are and what we see today. And you can do it too. Now, not everybody can be on the same level as Beyonce. Beyonce's not going to listen to another Beyonce's music. I mean, maybe she will. She seems very supportive. But I was just saying, people have their roles in life. Some people want to be the Beyonce. Some people just want to go to be the pizzeria guy. They're passionate about food. They just want to be the cook. Maybe they want to be the dishwasher. Maybe someone just wants to be a garbage man. Some people want to go to space. And that's the beauty of human civilization. There's a role and a place for everybody. And if you don't like your place or your role, by the grace of God, and hopefully for you listening, you have the power to change it. Or to create a space of change where someone else maybe down the line will be able to achieve it. That's why we say this person crawled so that person could walk, and that person walked so that person could run, and etc., etc., etc. I'm doing a very, brisk walk right now because there were people who came before me who opened the doors to an equal civilization and society that I live in today. I can come to the park and record an episode for my podcast, and I'm not being harassed. I'm not being taken by the police and dropped off in the middle of nowhere on a cold winter day and being left to die. I'm able to even incorporate my business and make money and have a bank account and rent, and if I had the money, own property. And I say this because, not even that long ago, in the 80s and 90s and whatever, and before, First Nations, Indigenous, and Native people we weren't allowed to have a bank account. We weren't allowed to rent our own. And these are very recent changes that I didn't have to fight for. People crawled out of the pits of hell to ensure that people who, as of right now, like me, didn't have to suffer the way that they did. You see? And sometimes I feel like I got some big shoes to fill. But I got big feet, so it kind of works out. And that's the beauty of the universe. Everything always works out in the end. And if it's not working out, it's not the end. Everything always works out for me. Why? I honestly don't fully understand why everything does work out. I assume because we live in a loving universe. And I assume everything wants to, because it's all one. Of course, I would want things to work out for myself. And as the law of divine oneness, I would want everything to work out for you as well, my listener. Now, we're kind of all over the map in this episode, which is fine. I was going to do a video for this episode, but there's just something beautiful about audio alone. And I think it might be that when you listen to a podcast without video, you can create your own mental images on what you're hearing. And if I'm good at speaking and I am descriptive and I flow well enough, then you can see what I'm trying to show you. Get you into a feeling that's beautiful so that you can become aware of the beautiful that life is and that you are and that other people are. And I also just recorded and released like 4 or 5 episodes in the last few days, or since Saturday. So I've kind of just like tapped out for podcast ideas. There's a balance to it all, right? You don't want to lose yourself in your work. And I mean like actually like lose sight of who you are and, the purpose that you hold in life. And the reason why you started doing it in the first place. And I just want to express my sincere gratitude, because when I started the late night cool down, I didn't know what to expect, and I tried not to hold expectation as to how many views I should be getting or this or that or the other. I just did it because I wanted to do it, and I wanted to talk about certain issues and things that were on my mind and heart. And I hope through this journey of season 1, you got something valuable. You got a little treasure of knowledge. And I don't look at myself as a deity or a messiah or something. I'm just Kyle Antoine in this lifetime. I happen to be a soul that's very experienced, is very knowledgeable, has some wisdom, knows a lot about this life thing and consciousness and the universe and things of that nature. But I'm not special in the sense that I'm any different than what you can be or achieve. And I don't think of myself as, bigger than you or less than. I will say I do think I am special. I do think I have a special gift, and I have something special to share with the world. And part of that sharing is with my voice and my words and sharing what I know. And really getting to know what this whole life thing is about this time around. We are on this eternal journey, and we made a stop on this rock that we call Earth, in this temporary body, to experience the limitations of the humanness of a human being, to love, to fail, to hurt, to become hopeless, to feel disconnected, to feel like nothing is working out. The drama of relationships, the drama of your life, There's always a story in our lives, and that's because the human mind creates stories of why this happened and why this person did that and why we're doing this. We create these stories. We are the author of our lives, of our stories. We can change the script. We just gotta decide to do it. And it really is now, in this present moment, or never. Because any concept of time outside of the present moment is an illusion. It doesn't exist. The concept of a day and time, the calendar and the clock, these are very beneficial organizational tools, but they don't fully blend with how reality actually is. You're never going to experience tomorrow. You're never going to experience yesterday, or you're never going to experience the next second. You're only going to experience right here, right now. For the eternal journey that we are on. Anything, and think about this. Try and understand this. Anything that has ever happened, that's the dinosaurs, that's even pre-Earth being developed in the universe, as an actual planet. And think about the future and what humanity will achieve in 1,000 years if things kind of don't go the nuclear war route and we kind of get our shit together and we advance our technology and we make life a lot more better for people, for everyone. Now understand this. All of the past that you just thought of and all of the future that you just thought of, it's all going to happen, and it's all happening right in this moment, right now. When the dinosaurs were walking the earth, quote unquote, billions of years ago, that's actually happening right now. Obviously, the dinosaurs have gone extinct. But just because something isn't here alive anymore does not mean that it didn't exist, or that it doesn't exist, that it didn't happen right now. There's always just been this eternal moment. The things around us, the physical, might change, but this moment always stays the same. It grows, it evolves. But do we understand this concept of the eternal moment? Because the past isn't the past. Like, it P-A-S-S-E-D. It's past, but it's not the past. The past doesn't exist. And it's hard for the human mind to wrap itself around this concept that, everything's happening right now. We think of the concept of a time machine, but it comes from a limited understanding of how and what time is. The present moment is space and time. These ideas of 12 o'clock in 5 minutes, next week, next year, these are just concepts of time that the human mind came up with. They're not based in reality. And by reality, I mean the way that things kind of work and experience. And a lot of the way these things work is just very pure laws or guidelines. And by laws, I mean the universal laws, the 12 universal laws. We talked about them in the Ticket Out of Poverty, and you can look them up too. But I say this because we get lost in time. We get lost in thought. We get lost in the mind. I'm going to wait for New Year's to start on my fitness journey. I'm going to wait till tomorrow to do that thing. I'm going to do that next week. What you're doing is you're delaying the present moment, or you're delaying something that you could do in this present moment to a time that doesn't exist. That's why people say it's now or never. And I'm not saying you got to achieve every single thing on your bucket list, on your things to get to your vision, and all in one go. What I'm saying is, if you are waiting for the right time, or you're waiting for, if you're specifically waiting, you're wasting time. They're kind of, and slow and steady progress over a long period of time, long, slow, and consistent progress over a long period of time is going to bring about a better result than short but powerful bursts periodically. But if you want to get get a fit and beautiful, sexy body, if you want to make the money, if you want to start the podcast, you're only fooling yourself if you think you're going to do it next week or next month or next year. You got to get into the mind space of now. I want to look better, more healthier, more fit. I want to be healthier. I want to be more fit. Right now is when you do it. Get up, go outside, go for a walk, go to the gym, get a membership. You want to start a podcast? Write down what your podcast is going to be called. Write down what you're going to talk about. Define your goal. It's very hard to achieve something that you don't understand or don't know about. Don't be the 80-year-old man or woman or person who looks back at their 20s, who looks back in their 30s and their 40s with regret because you didn't go after your dream. And I say dream because that's what it is. You're dreaming. Life is a fucking dream. When we have this spiritual awakening, you're like, oh shit, I remember why I'm here. I remember I'm not the mind, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not this body, but I am inhabiting what some people call the temple of God, or this vessel, this meat suit, for a limited amount of time. Why am I here? Why did I awaken? And I shared this sentiment, or I shared kind of like, these concepts of, the meat suit, the awakening and stuff with a friend the other day. I believe like the ultimate goal is to awaken in this lifetime, in this body, before we die, and, awaken then. And I've said this before on the podcast. Listen to Dolores Cannon on YouTube, and she takes people through hypnosis and goes through the death process, like what happens when we pass away. And she just puts it all together beautifully. And you can take it or you can leave it, but to me it really makes sense. And like that's pretty much spot on. There's so much more to life than having sex and dating someone and feeling good all the time. And, this is life. We, of course, don't want to be in a perpetual state of turmoil. But, it's kind of to be expected that things sometimes feel difficult and hard and emotional. And with that, we can also expect life is going to feel pretty goddamn good. Especially if we create a life that feels pretty goddamn good. Having discipline in the beginning does not feel good. Going to the gym when you don't feel or look your best, it doesn't feel good. But you're never going to look your best if you don't start. You're never going to achieve your goals if you do not start right now. And it's a balance. You got to balance your current life with the life that you're trying to achieve. And then at some point, you got to trade in. You got to make the decision to give up your old life for the new life. You can't have two lives. What are you, selfish? You can have one big, beautiful life, but it's going to cost you your old, maybe smaller life. And by smaller, I mean less fulfilled life that you may be living. And you're going to experience things that you've never experienced before. You're going to, and that can be good and that can be bad. But if you're going after a big, beautiful dream that is from the spirit, your spirit or the universe or whatever, most of the time it's going to be pretty good. It's going to put you in some weird headspaces like, holy shit. And you got to get over your own mind and your own limited beliefs. And you got to change. And humans don't always have the capability of accepting or be willing to go through change. But change is the natural part of life. It's beautiful that didn't necessarily do it consciously, but season 1 is ending on the beginning of spring and summer, and summer's coming down the line. It's beautiful because things are coming back, like the plants and the floral and fauna or whatever are coming back out. Seasons change, people change, and we just got to grow and adapt, and we got to meet the standards of our dream. If we want something big and beautiful, we got to become big and beautiful. And I'm not saying egotistical or this and that, but you got to match what you're trying to achieve. You got to generate it first, and then it will reflect out. If you want it, you already got it. Knock and doors will open. And if a door doesn't open, keep knocking on different doors. And eventually the one that's meant for you will open. Ask and you shall receive. That's what prayer is about. To me, prayer is I need help from something bigger than myself right now to help me achieve this. I need help. But manifestation is that internal ability to co-create your reality with the universe. So I don't want to talk in loops. I want to keep it very short, simple. I was gonna have this big grand episode and go on this hour-long monologue or whatever, but I'm like, this is the late night cool down. It's already a late episode. Thank you for tuning in to season 1. Season 2 is the collaborative collection. And every episode is my goal that every single episode will have a guest on. Season 1 was about me, Kyle Antoine. Season 2 is about you. Season 2 is about the guest. Season 2 is about who can we bring on to share their story and their life philosophy and what message do they have to bring to the world and to the late night cool down listeners. So with that, God bless you all. God bless this podcast. God bless me, and I'm so grateful. So please consider following, liking, sharing. It means the world to know that you enjoy the content, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.